A roll call.
Alderperson Robinson. Hurt.
Here.
Gilbert.
Present.
Swanson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Pulis.
Here.
Healy. And Mayor Tomes.
Here. All right, public comment. Nothing signed up. Nobody signed up. And we're not doing virtual anymore. So we will move on to the next presentations. Jack, I think you're up.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just make sure I've got my clicker working here. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity, Council, Mayor, City Manager. Very exciting night. Just want to look back on a couple of years. This has been 2+ years in the making. Obviously, our partnership between the Chamber and the City of Rock Island started in, I believe, late 2020 to explore the potential of creating a place management organization and a sustainable funding model to support a dedicated downtown organization to provide services and programs above and beyond what the municipality has the capacity to provide, and in addition to general property owner obligations. So here we are. Fast forward to June 2023, we have a dedicated downtown organization in place. It is its own legal entity, the Rock Island Downtown Alliance. Alliance is a key word. Alliance, to me, and I believe the board, represents the strong partnership between the public and private sector, which is really what this organization is. And so on behalf of the Rock Island Downtown Alliance Board of Directors, I'm excited to talk to you tonight about our work plan and budget for the first year of operations. And one piece we left out there, obviously the establishment of the special service area, City Council's establishment of the special service area is a big part of this organization and one of the primary funding sources through the property owners. We'll start high level and then dig in. Everyone should have received copies of the work plan and budget, as well as some budget assumption notes. And so none of this should be a surprise to anyone. The vision, we're starting with the vision for downtown Rock Island as a place, as a destination. So our vision is downtown Rock Island is a vibrant, welcoming, and prosperous place to live, work, play, eat, and shop. Now, this is a starting vision. Obviously, as our board works into strategic initiatives and planning, that could change. But at this point, our working vision is that. Our mission at the get-go here is for the Rock Island Downtown Alliance to deliver services and programs for the City of Rock Island Downtown Special Service Area that enhance public spaces, encourage private investment, and improve quality of life in downtown Rock Island. We have 3 areas of work for the organization. And that's how our work plan is structured. Business and economic growth, infrastructure and livability, and advocacy and promotion. And about 50% of the budget focus on clean and safe initiatives, and that fits into that infrastructure and livability pillar. You'll see how our work plan fits into the city's downtown revitalization plan crafted in 2015. As well as the priorities set by not only our board of directors, of which Aaron, our chair, is here tonight, Aaron Sutherland, President and CEO of Illinois Casualty Company, as well as based on priorities and top issues of other downtown stakeholders that we've been communicating with over the past 2+ years. And I would say priorities is from council as well. What we've heard in our meetings, we tried to make sure that this work plan reflected all of the outreach that's been completed up to this point. At the bottom of the page, you can also see how this aligns with the Chamber's strategic plan, quality of place, for the next 3 years, as well as our dedicated downtown key performance indicators, or some of the ways that we look to measure our success in the coming years. Now, this is a startup organization, and part of this is that we need to rip the Band-Aid off and start performing services and programs and to get initiatives off the ground and to see how those services and activities perform. And so as part of this, as we're in startup mode, part of that is gathering baseline data so that we can develop benchmarks as we do get the Downtown Alliance and our operations off the ground. As I mentioned, 3 areas of work, or 3 pillars of work, starting with business and economic growth. I'm not going to go through line by line of this, just for sake of time, and we'll allow for questions after the presentation. But I will be sure to highlight some of the major initiatives. There are 13 throughout this work plan, and my name is attached to, I think, all 13, with support from an operations manager that we'll look to hire, as well as city staff who are our partners, and our chamber staff, so partners in the different departments at the Chamber of Commerce. We obviously want to enhance the downtown economic ecosystem. That's our partners, working with our partners at the Chamber, DARI, City, to ensure that those grant programs that were just rolled out with the city, we want to try and make sure our downtown business owners and property owners are aware of those and pursue projects that maybe they weren't ready to pursue before. And so we are keen on serving as a connector in that role and really being able to promote those programs and work with our partners at the city to try and spread as many of those dollars as we can in the downtown area. We'll be looking to launch our own capital improvement program, not only to leverage the city programs, but also additional private investment into the downtown. The board is planning to identify specific capital improvement programs at future meetings. That's not set in stone right now. We have a line item set aside for capital improvements. Again, there's further discussion needed to identify specifically what kind of programs: facade, interior, exterior, streetscaping improvements to businesses and properties throughout the downtown. On to infrastructure and livability. As I said before, about 50% of our budget is tied to this pillar of work. Maintaining a clean and safe downtown were the utmost priority throughout our outreach discussions with stakeholders and our board. And so that's what you'll see in this area. We are looking to work with the Rock Island Police Department to offer overtime hours to police officers to patrol downtown at an enhanced level. We're looking to have a community navigator or community navigators focused on street outreach work, connecting folks who may be experiencing quality of life issues or exhibiting antisocial behavior, making sure folks are connected with the right resources in our community, and just having that daily boots on the ground outreach is very key. In addition to that, we're looking to set up regular communication channels, not only with our Downtown Alliance team, which includes our cleaning ambassadors out on the street, community navigators, Rock Island PD, Public Works, Parks, all of the players involved. There needs to be that enhanced level of communication. As I mentioned, some of the negative behaviors and looking to deter some of those in the downtown. We're talking about making a $7.5 million investment into the downtown infrastructure, and we'll be looking to make some tactical urban design changes that also deter some of those unwanted behaviors. Flows into the next part of breaking ground on our Rebuild Downtown Rock Island project. Again, this is the $7.5 million project that I'm assisting primarily the Public Works Department with, in terms of getting public outreach and downtown stakeholder outreach, and then just assisting with the remaining planning process as we work toward breaking ground on that next year. Launching a downtown cleaning ambassador program. This is focused on having, again, uniform branded workers in our downtown daily, focused on making sure we have a clean, welcoming downtown Rock Island. So maintenance, cleaning, beautification, including sweeping debris, trash litter pickup, as well as removing graffiti potentially helping with enhanced snow removal as well. Could include weed removal, watering plants, flowers. One piece that is not yet established is a potential agreement with the city for enhanced services downtown. And so we will be looking to bring that back to City Council at a future date that would outline some of the specific services and programs that the Downtown Alliance would be providing downtown, in addition to what the city currently provides. Hiring an operations manager. One thing that I failed to say, but I believe was communicated to council, was that our board of directors approved this budget and work plan on June 1st, including the hiring of an operations manager. This position would be primarily spent assisting with services, day-to-day street-level services. So thinking about 70% of the time outside on the boots on the ground work, overseeing those the cleaning crew, as well as any community navigator positions that we have, and working with PD, doing business checks, really helping us with that face on the street, but performing those daily services. I don't have anything against helping out with those services or cleaning up trash myself. I was out a couple hours last week with some volunteer crews doing just that. But obviously we want to build capacity with this. And we saw a need, and most organizations of this type, dedicated downtown place management organizations, have an ops person who is out on the street every day, working with the crew, overseeing that work, and making sure that it's done to the best of our ability. With a new organization, obviously it's important to promote the work that we're doing, and so that will be part of our work plan in the first year. And so we are working on some logo and branding and style guide work right now. In fact, our board of directors will have a look at two logos that were created for the organization at our board meeting tomorrow night. In addition, we look to take ownership of the existing Downtown Rock Island social media and website that we've been using on loan or lease with our friends at Development Association of Rock Island. And we'll be looking to do a launch of the Downtown Alliance, an official launch, once we have an approved work plan and budget, and we start to hire, get our uniformed workers in place. We're really excited about, again, ripping the Band-Aid off and being able to start work here. Securing office and equipment storage space is key. We've been granted free office space or rent-free office space the last couple of years, thanks to the Law Center, which is a downtown building and business. And so we are working with the board and with the city to identify other potential options for both office and equipment storage space for the Downtown Alliance. And so more to come on that. Promotions and stakeholder communications is key. For example, prior to coming to this event or this meeting tonight, I just sent out an email to about 150 downtown stakeholders promoting our public meeting tomorrow night of the newly updated downtown improvements, the renderings for that $7.5 million in improvements. And so keeping folks up to date and communicating to them about maybe certain events or street closures or other things happening downtown, whether it be grant programs or other ways to engage, is critically important and another priority of our board. Event promotion and neighborhood activations, this is also key. As you'll see in the budget, we don't have major funding dedicated toward large-scale events, but that doesn't mean we aren't looking to program smaller neighborhood activations or events in the downtown that again draw attention to public spaces, bring people to the downtown, and hopefully patronize businesses downtown. In addition to our own events that we'd like to get off the ground, we also see the role of the Alliance being able to support other activations and events happening in the downtown, whether it be Parks Department programming events at Schweber Park or fellow businesses downtown that are looking to promote and program events. The last bullet point here is another very important initiative, which is to advocate for improved downtown property owner stewardship, as well as other public policy initiatives that arise. We've had a couple of meetings with city staff about the relationship between building inspections and planning and zoning and the Downtown Alliance, and how we all work together to not only identify perhaps certain issues downtown, but also figuring out how to best approach or address those certain issues. If it's something that the Downtown Alliance should be doing, directly to a property owner, or does it rise to the level of enforcement where the city needs to step in? But again, with the establishment of the Alliance, we really look to elevate and enhance these partnerships with the city. Here's the budget in small print. I apologize. But this is the numbers behind the work plan. And so we can start at the top and move down. Curious if it could be zoomed in at all. I'm okay, but I think others in the audience may appreciate that. Thank you. If you could perhaps scroll to the right. I don't know if we'll be able to catch it all. Shoot. Okay. Well, I will start at the top and work our way down. So this first area is all support, so dollars coming into the organization for the provision of services and programs, activities. The first line item is City of Rock Island support. Now, we have an assumption here. We don't have an agreement for those enhanced services with the city, but there's an $80,000 line item here. That would be in the form of an enhanced cleaning or safety services agreement between the Downtown Alliance and the city. The next line is $70,000 for contributions from community partners such as Modern Woodmen. James Blackwell is in the room tonight representing Modern Woodmen. They're not a member of our board, but they attend each and every one of our meetings and are making a significant investment into our organization, as well as some other community partners. The special service area line item, $310,613. That's property owner contribution through a new tax on properties within the special service area. And the contribution from the city as well that was in our agreement between the city and the chamber for management of the downtown special service area. It's $70,000 for the professional services that the chamber will provide in management of the organization and the special service area, as well as about a $10,000 contribution for grant management for our large state of Illinois grants that the chamber was the recipient on. We're looking to have some sponsorship dollars come in for alternating currents, not using any funding from any of the funding sources in the first part to get some programs off the ground this August with alternating currents. And moving down to expenses, reflecting the work plan, our various areas of work, marketing and promotion, capital improvement program, office rent, professional development, our cleaning ambassadors, safety services, $30,000. That is the line item that we would look to make offer up overtime hours to the police department to provide enhanced patrol in the downtown, and that would be that was the number that Police Chief Rich Landy was comfortable with at that time, or at this time, excuse me. That would equate to about 500 hours of patrol in the downtown, and so. I know our board is eager, as soon as this budget is approved, to try and start offering those overtime hours. I don't want to speak on behalf of the police department or on behalf of Todd, but what was communicated to us during conversations that led us to including this in the budget was that Chief was comfortable with that number, was not comfortable with making a directive for overtime hours in the downtown, but was comfortable with offering it up to officers to take that opportunity. There were concerns about staffing shortages as well as potential burnout among police officers. You'll see a line in there for community navigator. Again, that's the street outreach, connecting folks with resources, supplies and equipment, and the overhead number as well. Obviously, we'll need supplies and equipment for our downtown crew. This will be everything from potential smaller utility vehicles to cleaning supplies such as graffiti removal, all the necessary PPE or personal protective equipment. Again, think about it as a scaled down, much scaled down public works department specifically dedicated to the downtown. We're not going to be purchasing street sweepers and things of that nature. That heavy lifting will be left to public works as it should be. But we'll look to enhance the daily cleaning, maintenance, beautification in the downtown. The last section is dedicated to personnel, and so an executive director position, as well as the operations manager previously mentioned. Okay, 20 minutes. So try to highlight the major areas. Again, hopefully none of this was, or most of this was not a surprise to council, as this is something we've been talking about for a couple of years now, 2+ years in the making. 50% of the budget being dedicated toward clean and safe initiatives is right in line with how place management organizations throughout the country operate. That's a pretty, I would say, a number that reflects the budgets of many organizations like this throughout the country. I believe Downtown Davenport Partnerships number is similar to that in terms of the amount of budget that is dedicated toward those types of services and programs. Happy to answer any questions. And Todd, if I left anything out from the board, obviously Todd is a member of our board representing the city, and so the public sector is represented on that board. As you all know, as you approved the mayoral's appointment, the other 12 board members are a diverse group of stakeholders representing various parties in the downtown. So,
Do we have any questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to comment that it looks like the city's contribution under program support is like $160,346, and then under the expenses, $30,000 will be paid back to the police for police services. So with a net city expense of about $130,000, which I think is, in my opinion, quite reasonable for the budget. And I commend you on making this really easy to understand. Thanks.
great. I have to give credit too to our finance team at the chamber, who obviously helps oversee not only the budget of this entity, but our other downtown organizations as other departments of the organization. And so, unfortunately, Bree Collier, our finance director at the chamber, couldn't be here tonight. However, she will be very helpful in terms of providing financial reports every month to the board as well. And again, the $80,000 line item, that's something that's been talked about. I believe it's still up for negotiation, and we have to, put together an agreement and see where that lands. But I appreciate your comments.
Any other questions?
How fluid is this budget?
Great question. I think it has to be fluid because if services aren't available or they aren't needed or they're deemed unnecessary, we need to be able to pivot, right? And so if you're not providing or performing services or activities, you're not incurring costs for those specific pieces. And I think that's where, council can trust the board appointments that were made in terms of the board working with staff on those. And Todd obviously is a member of that board. And I believe on the agenda tonight in front of you is to give the board that authorization to be able to make adjustments to that budget if we run into those issues where we're not incurring costs for specific areas. In year one, part of getting this off the ground is we may realize that there's a much bigger need in one department versus another. And that's the beauty of that flexibility as time goes on throughout this first year, but also year to year to make adjustments as needed. One example of that real quick could be, the city has two very, what I would say, are aggressive economic development programs through those grant programs. And so, obviously, more money is a good thing. The dollars here for capital improvements would only be for the downtown. But if we're seeing that there's not a need for that, for example, perhaps those could be shifted elsewhere. Again, that's just an example, but I think the flexibility is key.
The example I thought of is being down there every day with my business.
Yep.
And I hate to say this, but it's true. I don't think we need as much police down there right now because there isn't people coming down there currently. So, some of that might get switched. And I just want to ultimately have some of that flexibility in there, and I appreciate that. So that's why I set you up for that question.
Thanks, Bill. As regards to the police, I think, and Aaron can speak to this as well as a board member and leader of the board, but the presence of police, whether it's on foot or in a small utility vehicle or on bicycle, I believe that's where the interest lies, is having that presence, that uniform presence, not only for our downtown Alliance workers who would be branded and would be able to interact with visitors or again, folks who may be experiencing some quality of life issues, business owners, et cetera. It's just having that visible presence day after day that folks want to see.
Another challenge I would have to you and with the people that you guys have on the board is you referenced the 2015 downtown plan.
Yeah.
It's a little outdated.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, I think it has some good merit to it, but, obviously we all know times have changed and, outdoor dining and things like that. So, I would challenge you to get the people who are interested to move down a path towards coming up with something that's more relevant to.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think, it's not an amendment to that plan, but the plans that were put in place and, the proposed improvements to the downtown, the $7.5 million, that's a great start. And I see kind of two strategic plans going, happening at the same time, right? One for downtown as a destination, as a place, geographic place, and one for the organization as well. And how do we align those two so that the organization that's been put into place to service and program the downtown at this higher level is satisfying the needs or doing the best that it can to satisfy the needs in partnership with the city for the greater downtown.
Excuse me, do you see a need for a full staffed during the first year when we're going to have a lot of construction down there?
Yeah, it's another great question, and that's come up in some board discussions. I believe that we have until at least next spring, where that's the goal for construction to start. I don't think we can afford, we want to get this off the ground and get the operations up and rolling. I see the next 2 to 3 years, to be honest, of getting this off the ground, fine-tuning certain initiatives and programs so that by the time that construction is complete in the core of our downtown, we have a successful and respected place management organization that people look to in the downtown. Because after those improvements are made, it's we're going to have a bright and brilliant downtown core. That's the vision. And so, I guess to more directly answer your question, yes, I think the staffing is key. If we don't incur certain costs for different services while that construction is ongoing, that's a different story. But I think there's always going to be a need for what we're laying out here. It may shift to certain areas of the downtown during different parts of construction, but that stakeholder communication, for example, during construction is going to be so key. That boots on the ground, kind of interacting with our business community and building owners every day is going to be key, because there's going to be some disruption with that construction. It's just part of it. Hopefully short-term pain, long-term gain.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a couple of comments. So when the budget last year was first presented, this is very similar, and there was a lot of opposition to 4 staff members and the amount of overhead, and yet that is still in this plan. Did you consider starting smaller with maybe yourself and maybe 2 part-time cleaners and 30 hours each, and see how that goes before you?
We proposed the position of the operations manager, again, just seeing it work well in other downtowns and it being a, kind of a model that we wanted to start with. I think it's important to have that. Again, the idea with the ops manager is that 70% of the time is out on the street every day, and someone with a background of getting their hands dirty, has some experience in landscaping or maintenance or this type of work. And so we do think it's important that that was included, and there really wasn't much opposition at all, actually, from the board of directors level with that.
One other question. So do you see yourself and the Alliance creating a unique downtown Rock Island event to put us on the map? We used to have Jamaica My Week and Gumbo Yaya, but we need something new to draw. I see that Moline announced today their new ongoing annual event. So what
Yeah.
about something like
Yeah,
that?
signature event for downtown. I think that, I don't think, that, this existing budget doesn't reflect that, right, to be able to host a large-scale event. However, I would say that the Downtown Alliance, I myself, very interested in having those conversations with the city of what that would look like, as well as at the board level here. As we're looking to start construction next season on this downtown core, again, that's where my head is at of really focusing on getting this operation up off the ground, cleaning house downtown. We're making these significant investments to the downtown core as well as First Avenue between the riverfront and the downtown business district so that we're setting ourselves up for future success, whether it be for events, whether it be for business attraction. But yes, very interested in having those conversations and being strategic about it, and thinking about the future. I will say one other thing with the Alliance and existing budget and even looking to next year. Really curious about exploring some smaller scale events that are happening more frequently versus maybe a one time a year event. I think there's some great opportunities to activate maybe smaller parts of the downtown. Like with Arts Alley, for example, one of the programs that we're looking to get off the ground is to have kind of a holiday pop-up shop series, having some vendor stalls in Arts Alley, opening it up to artists and small businesses to be able to rent some of those vendor stalls either for a weekend or for a week during that holiday season. So I see those types of activations as a great opportunity for our Alliance to dig our teeth into, but it would definitely take some capacity building and some budget building to host large-scale events, but very interested in talking with the city about the future of that.
Maybe that's something we could strive for after knowing when all the
Yes.
construction's completed.
Bingo. And I think that's where the strategy comes into play and being really thoughtful about what that looks like, not only for a one-time signature event, but also very thoughtful. We're having these internal conversations about, how could that Second Avenue space be used frequently? Whether it's a farmer's market or a vendor's fair or something along those lines. So, yeah, it's part of it.
You are trying to do more with alternating currents this year.
Yes. Yeah, and so did mention that in the budget. Alternating Currents is a music, film, comedy, art festival. We do have some exciting programs planned to happen in downtown Rock Island over that August 17th through the 21st weekend, and you should be hearing about those soon. We are looking for some additional city support. We're also working on getting some other funding in place for that. We're working with the Parks Department as well to kick off Alternating Currents. It actually aligns with the kickoff to the Thursday Night Groove series. And so we've been in communication about an exciting program for that night. So more to come on that.
I just have one other question. This might be more applicable to what's going on tomorrow night. But, so these, I don't know, you call them parklets, the outside dining
Yes.
things. So who pays for that? Is that part of the Rebuild Downtown Rock Island grant, or is the business owner who wants one of those, do they have to pay for it?
Yes, the way we're structuring it is model after other downtown orgs and cities throughout the country that really in the peak of the pandemic stuck their neck out for businesses that were working to survive during those tough times. A lot of cities and downtown organizations actually made the initial purchases of those structures and then provided them to the dedicated dining establishments in their downtown. A lot of cities worked out some sort of a lease system for not only for use of that outside patio space, but also for the structures themselves. And so that's something that we'll be needing to explore. But the actual purchasing of the structures or potential leasing of those structures from a manufacturer would be part of the Rebuild Downtown budget. And so our goal as an internal team here, something we've talked about, Mike and I and other folks that are meeting now pretty much weekly on the downtown improvements, is the dining structures is a way to hopefully spread the love beyond the core project area. And so, I have in our work plan here that we'd advocate for 10 outdoor dining structures, so that that would include some folks that are in that Second Avenue core that will be getting to complete reconstruction, but also outside of that project zone, so that even if their sidewalk or their street isn't getting completely reconstructed and beautiful decorative lighting added, well, there's a dedicated dining structure that would help boost their business and align with streetscape beautification and all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to watch the time here a little bit. Any other questions?
I would just say, I've been on city council for 6 years now. I've attended too many public input meetings like we have planned for tomorrow night, and it's the same thing over and over and over. It's what's included in the 2015 downtown revitalization plan, and finally, after 6 years and more than that for the council members before me, finally we have some numbers dedicated to actually doing these items.
Yep.
And it is exciting. It's going to change downtown Rock Island, and so I appreciate everything that you're doing. I wholeheartedly, as Fifth Ward Alderperson, support the budget and the RETA efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, 6 to 8 p.m. Tuesday, June 27th. That's tomorrow at the Holiday Inn. Veenstra and Kim and Streamline Architects will be presenting the updated renderings. It's a really interactive presentation that allows for a lot of public input. And so I know you've all been invited, but would highly encourage you to attend and help us spread the word.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next up, Mr. Jerry Jones, Martin Luther King Jr. Center.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm here today to have a little bit further discussion in regards to the budget adjustment request I made in June 12th, but was pulled back because there are some questions and clarification needed in regards to that request. Before I get too much into it, what I did see in some of the questions is there was a lot of focus on in regards to the backbone support, the West End coordinator specifically. And so I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the scope of services that position will be providing, and then get into some of the questions and maybe some more explanation of what is to come forth with West End revitalization. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Great. So let me change up the presentation just a little bit. Do I have control, Tim? No? Can you go to the next one then, please? As you all recall, our West End revitalization effort is following a collective impact structure or model. And this graphic is very representational of what we're doing. We have a steering committee, and we have 5 work groups. The steering committee is providing that guidance, that strategy, that alliance amongst the work groups, and making sure that the strategies that they're coming forth are aligned with the overall vision of improving the wealth, the livability, and the power of West End of Rock Island. Martin Luther King Center, with our West End coordinator and other staff, are providing the backbone support for that work. And what that really means, when we're working with all these people from various sectors, but all have skin in this game. They're stakeholders, whether they live there, have businesses there, or have a strong affinity to the area. We are providing that support so that they stay connected, aligned, and stick to the values of the collective impact structure model so that we're actually moving towards the goals that are set out. You go back one slide, please, Tim. Thanks. So there are 5 key aspects to this model. First, foremost, is having that common vision. Everybody's working towards the same goal. And in order to do that, we must make sure that we all understand that goal the exact same way. Second, mutually reinforcing activities. In other words, we are doing things in work groups within the sector, within the area, that support those activities that lead towards those higher goals and strategies. Economic vitality might be having activities that are mutually reinforcing to to assets and income, and so on and so forth. Shared measurement. We have to know what are the key indicators that show success. And so we all agree upon what the shared measurements are, and we're making sure we're implementing them in our efforts moving forward. Continuous education or communication. What I'm doing today is making sure that our stakeholders, those who are involved, those who have interest, are continually made aware of the progress that we're making in a way that's completely understandable and clear. And then last, again, the backbone support, the role that the King Center is playing in this effort. It's dedicated staff providing support to the key functions to the sustained operations of this project. We are making sure that they have the resources that the steering committee, the working groups need. We're coordinating meetings, having agendas, providing decision-making tools, all the things that move this effort forward. And it's a large job. Move forward 2 slides, please. Overall, the backbone is going to build community engagement and ownership, stay true to our vision, to our values, our strategies, support the activities, use shared measurements, help to advance policy, and, of course, seek resources. That's the overarching view of what we are doing. But if you go into a little bit more detail, next 2 slides, you can see that it's a large job. Can you go forward, Tim, please? Thank you. Hence why we made the request for ARPA dollars for a West End coordinator. And I would imagine it's why the steering committee, once upon interviewing for that position and recognizing that with this job description, and if you could go forward a couple of more, Tim, in this aggressive time frame, they're not totally convinced that one person, even with the support of myself and resources at the King Center, that we can get this job done within that time frame. I will say that it has taken quite a bit of time to get to this point, and it's not moving as quickly as we'd like to see, but with additional resources, we could see it meeting this final goal in this transition period to have an action plan. And so that was the reason for the request for a budget adjustment to bring on a second West End coordinator. And I need to share the other context as well. During the interview process, again, steering committee providing that interviews and we did get some positive response, but it's going to take some time to cultivate that. So I turned to some of the grant resources we have at the King Center that we solicited from our nonprofit side, and did find that there's opportunity to use some of those dollars for a second position. Hence why I brought it forth to city manager, HR, the board first, of course. They had to get their endorsement, to get their approval, and then bring the memo to you all as a city council. Before I go any further, I think it'd be really good if we open it up for questions, because I know that's a lot, even though this is just a relatively small part of it, and I want to make sure that we're having a good dialogue and understanding. So I'll open it up to questions at this point.
I guess I'll open up. Jerry, so we totally appreciate the work that's being done on this, and we do value the West End revitalization project. I think, at least I know I have a few questions and anticipate there may be a few more. So the reason I kind of brought this all on is, as you know, and I sent you an email, was we just seen a blank with no explanation in the memo what that was for, like that it was going to the West End, like a project coordinator as such. So to me, I guess I'm going to say I'm just asking for a little bit more transparency when it comes to these things. And I do understand that that's your funds, but I think to help the council understand, what is happening, because I'm sure there's gonna be times you're gonna be approaching the council. We want to know that you're being transparent with us on what different things are going towards, so.
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk about the ARPA, the budget that came out. So I'm going to, for the original 100, or for the 100,000 here. Now, it shows in there that that this transfer was going to youth programs with salary and benefits. Can you explain that I guess if we're thinking it's going towards something and I'm seeing youth programs up there, I guess how is that?
I'm not sure what you're looking at, but I can assure you that the ARPA dollars that we are using that you approved are coming out of Fund 248, correct, Linda? And the designations that are under that do not have youth programs. So salary will be paid out of Fund 248, not youth programs. I would imagine that's just an accounting thing, but yes, it's going to be coming out of the ARPA dollars directly, not out of 901.
I get some clarification from Linda on that one, please.
What is Fund 248?
That's reference to, am I saying this correct, Linda? The ARPA dollars? That's the ARPA fund.
Well, I'm showing on this one here, it says youth programs, and I received a copy of an email that you were questioned on that, because I think our ARPA manager had a question on it, but I did not see a reply. It said ARPA funds to be transferred to indicates youth programs with salary and benefits. She wants to be sure that they can clearly show the government and elected officials and citizens what this is for. So I'm not sure why it lists this on there. I'm just trying to find out, is it a clerical error, or does it need to be put into something? I guess it's hard for us to see what's, and you understand why this raises a question when we see this.
If I could see it, I could probably provide some more explanation, but I will say again, the dollars that you have allocated, the $100,000, and please, Linda, if I get this wrong, correct me, is being paid out of Fund 248, which does not have youth services as one of the descriptors in regards to it. So that is likely an error or a miscommunication, but that's where those dollars, the $100,000 is coming out and how it will be spent.
Why were these, for this specific program, wouldn't it have been a lot easier to set this up under one project number or something? Because I feel like stuff is kind of all over the place here, and it's hard to follow what's going on.
So again, some of these are accounting questions that I won't be able to answer completely.
You work directly with our finance person
And,
who's
yeah,
also on your board. I mean, someone's got to take account of, I mean, for us to go back and look at it, it's kind of.
I don't think that's fair to blame Mr. Jones
I'm
for
not blaming, I'm just asking for
our accounting system.
I'm asking
It's
for
our
a-
accounting system. Everything we have within the system does not, our city does not have one particular accounting line.
That's right.
They're all spread that way.
Let's make sure that everybody gets it.
That's
Talk
okay,
over the
but
top
I'm
of
just
people.
not, I'm not gonna allow him to get
I'm not,
accused for anything.
I'm not, that's not my question.
what it sounds
I'm
like.
asking, no, you're taking offense, or you're being defensive. What I'm saying is, wouldn't it be easier to put this all under one thing
The
so
issue is,
that we can
if
understand
we
it?
want Linda to come up and answer that question with his potential, his potential.
Yeah, maybe I can provide a little bit of clarification or a little more information to help Linda and Jerry address it. You remember there was an email between Linda and Samantha and Jerry, and it shows the expenditures coming out of Fund 248, but it shows costs in our 921 youth programs for some reason. Is that an error? Or?
That's an error. We can change that, and I think I asked for that change already. That's a cost center. Sorry, we're going to get technical here. But in our chart of accounts, we have multiple cost centers reflective of the Martin Luther King Center. One of them is 921, and those are youth services. We'll be changing that likely to a different one. I don't want to get specific because I need to see it in front of me. That's more accurate. So clerical error is probably a better way to describe what happened there.
Later, the youth services designation, you said you say you're in the habit of using the cost center 921, but you're going to change it to 901 community services.
Mhm.
So,
That makes sense.
do we need a West End revitalization cost center? Is that the solution to it?
So that project code has been requested and has been made as of Friday or Monday this morning. The challenge, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, is that with the ARPA dollars, there is already a project code assigned to those dollars. Again, this is accounting
Doug can
information.
I can speak to the accounting codes. We had to give specific, for my requirements to the U.S. Treasury, I have to have specific codes. We have to be able to specifically track every expenditure. So for me, Linda and I work together on getting those accounting codes. They're based off of expenditure categories defined by the U.S. Treasury, and then our own internal last three numbers. So if Linda wants to speak on more of that, but those codes come from myself. Yep.
Linda, do you want to talk about that, please?
Samantha explained it perfectly. For restricted funds for ARPA, there has to be, like she said, specific project numbers. And we call them grant numbers, but they're more for federal reporting. So that's why it's a little different in that particular fund.
And will this, is there a fund specifically set up for the MLK revitalization or the revitalization plan?
Yes.
There is.
Correct, yes, I provided a project code specific to the West End. All of the $100,000 will be tracked through that specific code for ARPA only.
Gary, when was there's been a lot of confusion about if this was a contractual position or a city employee position. And just kind of going back and looking at the agenda and the study session on 213, I think it was called contractual staff. And then at some point you went to HR, and I guess when did that take place, and when was that and what was the need to go to them and differentiate, I guess, because I don't remember seeing anything after that or subsequent to that.
So, and I'll ask Rob to make sure I get this information correct as well. After my presentation and study session, I did meet with Rob because I meet with HR when we're looking to hire individuals. And I was advised that having a contractual relationship for that length of time with that level of supervision and housing at the Martin Luther King Center could run into some legal difficulties in regards to fringe benefits and other things. And since this position would be paid, and I'm talking about all aspects, out of grant dollars, out of ARPA dollars, there was no significant risk in having it under a city as a city employee, especially as we have cited this to be a 1 to 2 year position, but most importantly, only available as long as there are funds available to fund that position.
The IRS is pretty specific on what makes an employee an employee versus a contractor. This is what I do for my job. I get people in trouble for violating this.
And I guess that's where I was confused, because when it was first provided to us at $50,000 for a contract employee. So contract is, you get a 1099, you get no benefits. Then it evolved, and then it became a $100,000 ARPA request. And then it was a grant-funded position for 1 year. It was a one-time ask of the city council of ARPA dollars, which I do wish to clarify. From my understanding, ARPA dollars are not grant-funded dollars, they're city dollars. So to say to me, how I interpreted, this is a $100,000 grant-funded position. To me, it's like, okay, you're using the city dollars to get it started, but then after that, grant funding will be found to continue this position without coming back to the city. Where I got frustrated with, I mean, more than frustrated, kind of angry, was finding out that this is a city employee position with retirement, with pension, with a representation fund 3 times the amount that I have, with lots of restrictions on mine. And that's where I got kind of frustrated, because I feel like it was presented to me as a grant-funded position for 1 year, not a city staff position. And then I approved that, and then all of a sudden come to find out through clarification of your last email that no, this is in fact a city staff position. And so, you know, as I'm looking at the work group timeline, and the final action plan is February of 2024, So then at that point, is the coordinator no longer needed? Do we now acquire in the city an extra employee? I mean, that's where I got confused, because my original thought was it was either a contract employee, a 1099 employee, or it was a grant-funded employee, not a city staff employee. And that's where I got confused, because it's like, that was not what I approved, because I've been adamant that ARPA dollars not go to nonprofits, because we can't control how they're spent. And if they're not spent according to ARPA guidelines, then we could be asked to pay them back. And that was my frustration, is so much changes and none of it clearly explained to council.
So let me roll back, because the ARPA dollars you approved, and we appreciate that, were never going to be designated as grant funding. When I spoke of grant funded, I was speaking about the second position, not the first position.
So but at the time, in February,
Hmm?
there was no talk of a second position.
Correct.
So-
So the messages got intermixed, is what I'm saying. So the original message in regards to using ARPA dollars for one position is still the same. That has not changed at all. The budget adjustment I'm asking for is to use grant dollars to hire a second person, but with the same conditions that once the funding is ended, that position ends. And to be honest with you, that's exactly how the Martin Luther King Center operates now and has for the last, since 1975. In fact, I have to say goodbye to one of my employees in September because we're losing grant funding. These are the things that we put forth because we don't ask for additional dollars from the city to support those positions. So you can be assured that what was in concept presented to you in regards to that one position will be honored. I will say, though, that the first proposal of a contractual employee for ARPA dollars was listed at $75,000. The first request for ARPA did not specify an individual. So that number has not really changed. In fact, going to the city payroll, we'll spend a little bit less, just a little bit less on that individual than we would do contractually. Because a $50,000 contractual employee doesn't exist. We have to make up for that loss of fringe benefits in their salary, in the contract.
And see, that's where I was confused. I did not think this position at 1 year had benefits. That to me was a shocker, that pension is included in a 1-year position. I mean, that city employees get that, but that was where a lot of my confusion came in, because I know I'm a contractual employee in a couple of the things that I do, and yeah, I get nothing.
That's identical for me. I do contractual work for school districts, and I actually have a pension and everything. So it's just normal business practices. It's easier to bring them in as an employee, but you bring them in as a term employee. And then at the end of that term, it's, that contract is terminated. That's just a normal standard practice.
Yeah, but when you're a self-funded insurance, then you bring on all that experience too. So, I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of a slippery slope, because if you bring one person on for a year and say they have a catastrophic health event, then for a self-funded insurance employer, I mean, that really skews your premiums moving forward for everybody else once that person is gone.
I think the reason they kind of changed it, like Alderman Parker was saying, is in the IRS, it's kind of touchy how they handle those type of situations. If you had someone who was volunteering or something like that and getting work done for you, they wanted to make sure that they were protected also. Well, I get what you're saying, with the insurance process, part of it.
Just for my own clarity, are all of the employees at the King Center employees of the City of Rock Island? The City of Rock Island is on their pay stub?
Yes.
Right, even the ones that, like this employee that you mentioned you're letting go of in September, even the ones whose positions are funded through a grant that you get from the state of Illinois or wherever, they're still City of Rock Island employees. Is that how
Yes.
that works? Okay.
And the cost of the self-insurance and every fringe benefit comes from the grant funding.
Right.
But this money's ARPA money, not grant funding. So
The
it's
first
completely
person is.
different than what we were presented. I mean,
I'm sorry,
staring at
I'm not understanding that.
Well, I'm staring at slide 10 from the February 13th, and it says right here, hire a full-time contractual employee. And I guess I'm with Alderwoman Swanson on this. I'm just,
Rob, you
There
wanna
was two,
address
there were
that?
two positions. The first position was
no,
ARPA
not
money.
this one. It's from the
The
February 13th.
second position is the grant-funded
But
position.
in February, we were only talking about one position.
Right.
Yeah.
There was not
There
an
was not a
option.
second one.
No, it wasn't, because the interviews had not happened. It was only after the interviews came that the second position came up.
Yeah,
And then
but-
that's when that process came about.
Oh, I'm
So initially, yes, it was just one position,
That
which
a
was
contract.
ARPA.
Well, I'm
No, and
confused.
ARPA with a contract employee, not in city employee.
And I'm
Because it was
confused
stated
because
contract.
Still the same.
I thought
It's still
the
the same.
consultant recommended 2. I thought the consultant recommended 3 full-time people, which was way after February. And then your board decided, or whoever decided, only 2. So at the time of February, there was never a consideration for any more than 1 person, which is how I was understanding it.
Do I understand it correctly that back in February, when it was only one position, the idea was that this person was going to be just a contract employee, but then after a conversation with HR, you were advised, hey, this doesn't really sound like a contract, a 1099er, and we could get in trouble with the IRS if we tried to 1099 this person.
It
So
changed-
then it switched to a employee.
It changed very quickly prior to the approval on
Right.
February 27th. Maybe Rob can shed some light on that.
Yes, so it was originally put in as a contract employee. We had discussions. The term of the role would be 1 to 2 years is what we had during our discussion. That being that long a period of time under the under the direction of Jerry and the staff, them housing the position, providing all the goods and services, directing the daily work, that's when that transition was recommended. And we worked up the cost proposal, looking at it from a insurance-bearing job, full-time staff member like all the other members were over there.
But the council wasn't consulted and said it changed from a contract to an employee.
Correct.
We missed that.
That's the difference.
There was some direction that was provided. I provided an email with kind of an outline of the budgets
I
on
can tell you, I
February.
never received it.
I never received that either. I got a
That
job
it changed from a
description,
contract to employee.
but that's all I got.
Yeah, it was on
If
the,
it was communicated, we didn't catch it.
okay.
So I have the same confusion that Alderwoman Swanson has. So February 13th, we're told it's a contract position. Okay, then it was changed, we didn't get the info, whatever. And then on March 13th, then you came back and asked for a request to extend the consultant contract for another year. That had never been mentioned. So my confusion is like, we're getting all this information piecemeal instead of seeing the whole big picture. And I still don't understand what the consultant didn't finish, that they have to finish. And when I went back and looked through some of the reports that are posted on the website under this, so it says that the consultant is to be providing the backbone services to this project, not MLK Center, so that's another confusion. But I still don't understand why you would be hiring coordinators before the consultant's work is not done. And in the executive summary report, it clearly lays out a very detailed action plan of all the steps, of everything that needs to be done. Then, June 12th, we get a request for this budget adjustment. And then all of a sudden, there's 3 foundations and United Way grants that have the money to fund another position. But in my experience, foundations, grants, when you apply for them, they're for a very specific purpose. And you have to spend them according to what was agreed. But then, where were these grants just sitting around and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we can use that now for the West End?
There was a few questions in there. I'll try to go backwards, but help me remember all your questions.
I'm just, like, emphasizing my frustration too, where, like, we're getting it piecemeal. And so, and I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to put together and understand when all the funding came in, what has been spent to date, and all I keep getting, I can't get all the total documentation, and a lot of it is contradicted. One document will say, oh, we got $130,000 from John Deere. Then another one will say, no, we got $235,000. Then there was $40,000 from a TIF. Oh, no, that was from CDBG, and we have to pay back TIF money. It is this mass confusion.
I would say that to this, this to that, sorry. The questions are going likely to the wrong individual first without the entire need for information being conveyed entirely. In other words, I can answer all your questions and provide real clarity of what's going on in this very moment. I think it would make complete sense to you. But I need it all in one piece so that I can answer them all and create that picture for you. For instance, in regards to United Way funding, being able to fund the Martin Luther King Center's operations, we are receiving more anticipated revenue from United Way than we anticipated. That's great news. One thing about United Way that's truly progressive is that when they grant funds to an organization, they give discretion to the organization on how that funding is used. And we're seeing that more and more in some of our more progressive funders. We see it with John Deere. We see it with the Quad City Community Foundation. And yes, I hear you. Grants are for specific purposes. Is how I've been living my nonprofit life for the last 25 years, or 15 years, but in the last 5 years, we've seen some significant changes. It's not to say there aren't very restrictive grants. They still are. So that's some of the explanation in regards to the grants. Going backwards to, sorry, I'm not going to remember all your concerns.
So why is it we can't seem to get from beginning when, this project actually started in 2019, a clear trail of all the revenues, grants, ARPA dollars, whatever, funded, and then a list of all the expenditures for the West End project? So one example that I found today, I had forgotten, there was a first assessment that we paid the consultant $80,000.
United, the city paid $40,000, John Deere paid $40,000.
Right, but the contract was for $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when I got some invoices last week, there's another $195,000 contract with the consultant. And with information you sent me today, through June, they've billed and we've paid them $76,000 of that.
Using John Deere grants.
Well, yeah, but see, I can't trace everything. This is what I'm trying to say. But we still owe them, or they haven't completed work for $120,000 plus dollars? That's according to their invoice, because they keep track. This is the amount of the contract, here's how much we bill, or this is the current bill, and this is how much is remaining.
Correct. And so there are deliverables that have not been achieved yet, listed in the contract. One of them, well, actually, I did provide this in an email. You may not have received it yet. But there are deliverables that have not been accomplished yet, hence why we haven't paid out the full contract as of yet. And again, you mentioned the extension. That's another example of how this process is not moving as quickly as we'd like it to move forward. And that's a direct reflection of how much work is necessary that needs to be dedicated and focused on that.
So Jerry, can I just make a quick comment? To Alderperson Gilbert's question or comment about not being able to have a clear picture of how everything flows. Could that be because there's no project line item for the West End, so everything is coming in from different pieces? And unfortunately, this is how the Martin Luther King Center has to operate. they have to move things from different pieces because there's no set income stream coming in. It has to be piecemeal like that. We have that corrected now. We have a project number, so we can actually put everything in one project number, and then we can actually make sense of everything that we have to do on a daily basis. Not myself. The King Center has to do on a daily basis. This is regular operation for them. But this is what we have to kind of understand as council of the confusion that's going on because of how it's not really being supported. They have to piecemeal things. To get a project off the ground, you do have to pull funds from other. You have to go out and do more beating the streets and trying to get more money in because we don't have enough support. It's plain and simple. It's no different than what we just went through with the SSA. There's going to be, bumpy roads until we get this up off the ground. It's a major, major initiative that we're trying to get up. This is nothing new. It's been, these neighborhood plans that the consultant been researching on has been going all the way back to the 70s and 80s. It's the same stuff. Just like we mentioned before with the Downtown Alliance. It's the same information, but we never had the funds to really do it. That's what we're trying to get in place now.
A question for you
Yes.
then, if I may. So all the monies that are coming in from different resources, are they all put into a general account and then pieced out by accounting processes?
I'm not going to get into the.
Let me answer
won't
that
have me
because that's a
answer that.
great question, and you're not going to enjoy the answer entirely, but in our accounting, we have approximately 5 funds. It's better to think of them as 2 areas. Our 200 funds are focused on the building and some administration. Our 900 funds are focused on programs and activities, the human services we provide. We divide some of those 900 funds in order to be able to deal with federal and state audits much more easily.
Okay. But, and I understand that part because I work on an organization that's a nonprofit organization, and we have several different accounts based upon the needs of the organization. And that was more where I was going to it. Are these accounts, are they in the same institution? Pardon my voice. Are they in the
Yes.
same institution? Or are they just by accounting numbers or by separate accounts so that you can manage them for your audit?
The latter part of what you said, I believe, is accurate. We have one of the smallest budgets in the city, but we have the largest chart of accounts exponentially higher than any other department.
I just want to interject real quick. It's 6:27. And so obviously we all know 6:45 is the other meeting. We got to give ourselves a little bit of time. And we can continue this conversation. I don't know if there's more presentation or not.
Doesn't need to be.
That's fine. I'll let you guys direct how it goes. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we're conscious of the time. That's all.
I want to correct one comment Alderman Robinson said about, okay, now it has a project number. No, it only has a project number for the ARPA funds.
Oh, we made that correction today.
No, that's not what they said earlier.
You mean all the John Deere Foundation funds now have a project number?
What we will do, I requested a project number because of that concern that we need to have an easy way to pull out expenses and revenues. And so we will work backwards as much as we can to assign the project code, the new project code in the 900 funds to be able to pull that information easily. The ARPA dollars will not have the same project code because they're in a fund that's already assigned those codes.
Regardless of what the code is, I mean, if someone were to do an audit, they could all be drawn into this, the wheel could, the spokes would all lead to the hub. Is that what you're telling me?
That's a nice analogy.
It's a very challenging accounting practice, but, that's why we have Linda on
Got
board to
these
do.
guys.
Real quick.
And gals.
Real quick, speaking of audit, Linda does, when the city's audited every year, does it audit all of MLK's, all the grants and all the expenditures and everything else with that also?
Yes, the MLK Center is a part of the audit. The nonprofit side is considered a component unit. So if you went through the fund part of our financials, you will not see the nonprofits, but you will see it as part of the citywide, as it's called, governmental accounting.
So those things are audited, to file, make sure the track record's there, that of expenditures with revenues and everything else, with grants, et cetera.
And, I mean, auditors will let you know that they don't look at every single
no.
detail, you know.
But they spot check things and go
Right.
through it. Yes, correct.
Yes,
Okay.
because those funds are federal funds, so it's
Right.
part of our single audit, so which goes through a lot more scrutiny.
Yeah, there's some federal funds, there's some state funds, there's some
Federal, yes.
local independents, whether it be Melba K or whatever it is, United Ways and those sort of things. So those things are all,
Yeah, as far as for, you know, like the United Ways ones, those aren't as stringent as federal and state grants, so the reporting requirement isn't as stringent, but,
okay. But that's part of the audit, so,
yes, those are included.
okay.
Just to add, and we're subject to state audits as well in regards to our state funds.
Yeah, I would assume so, being a nonprofit, I mean, you're under a microscope,
Yes.
We got another question?
fortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which it is.
I have two questions. So is the MLK Center a nonprofit or is it a city department?
Great question.
I said no more presentation, and I lied. Can you go to, we're both.
You're both. Okay.
We are a registered and good standing nonprofit organization with federal and state government, and have been since 1975 with articles of incorporation. So, we're both. And how we've been operating in regards to how you divide the duties of each body has been this chart that I provide in our budget presentation and in our orientations. And that's where I look forward to having a more in-depth conversation with council and our board to discuss this relationship. It's worked very well over the last, how many years? 48 years. It allows for city council to have broad strategic oversight over the King Center. You approve our budget, but you rely upon our board of directors to provide that for you. You provide our financial and personnel policies. You rely on our board and our staff to make sure they're implemented. You appoint our board of directors, as well as the city manager hires and fires me, or this position. So there are checks and balances on both sides.
So then, so your nonprofit part, is it kept like separate one set of books, I guess, for that part, and then the city part is separate, or is everything, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what does the city pay, what doesn't the city pay, because then it goes to my second question for this position, which Rob said is a 1 to 2 year for the coordinator. So in February of 2024, the final action plan is complete. So at that point, does the coordinator stay on for the second year? And if that's the case, how is that funded? Or do they, at that point, they're already a city employee, do they go on the city's payroll since the city's ARPA dollars paid for, I mean, how does that work at the end of the year?
We'll make a decision in regards to what funding is available and how long the position can continue. Part of this process is to find resources, i.e. funding, to keep this going through grant funding. In any case, in any regard, this will be a person who is on city payroll. That's how we avoid some of the legalities through with the IRS
Right.
in any regard.
And that in itself is confusing to me because it's on city payroll, so there's employee expenses and then there's employer expenses such as Medicare, the employer portion of Social Security and all of that. And that was, because that was a question I had, is does the city pay for that or does grant funding pay for that? And it was explained to me that grant funding pays for all of that, and that's another confusing terminology, is it's city payroll, but it's kind of not.
Right.
Yeah.
We can go over
It's
this.
city payroll. It's not different than going through a separate payroll service. The city is acting as that agent, if you will.
If you look at the budget, all the 900 accounts related to the MLK Center, they're full of city employees, none of which are funded by the general fund.
Right.
They're funded by sources that the MLK Center generates.
And so then, because I know, like, because I'm on the finance committee for the library pays administrative services for the city to administer payroll and all that. Does the MLK Center pay those administrative services for HR and all those services that the city provides?
No.
Okay.
There's a different relationship. And that's something we're open for discussion as well. For instance, all the insurance costs that we incur, that's in the 900 funds. So there's different relationships as far as paying our way.
The city does, in, I think it's 211 fund, general fund provides a transfer of about $180,000.
Can you go to the second to last slide, please, Tim?
That the only person that helps pay for it is
Bingo.
Jerry.
Nope, go back one, Dan.
Yeah.
So here's our budget for the year. You can see that the general fund is approximately 9% of our entire budget, and we have different funding mechanisms for the rest of it, the largest one being our state of Illinois contracts.
So it's city payroll, but 9% of it is city tax revenue paying for it.
Correct.
So to get this straight, the MLK Center doesn't pay any administration costs? Is there any other departments that don't?
Well, if your department is included in the general fund, you don't pay any administrative cost.
Okay.
The administrative cost is typically applied to funds like enterprise funds.
Okay.
It can also be applied, apportioned to other funds like the library or MLK. I don't know the history of it, but I imagine at some point the decision was made not to charge MLK, just.
Okay.
I wasn't here for that either.
Yeah.
I wasn't either, that's why I asked the
It's not
question.
right or wrong,
And it is,
it is
I'm
what
sorry.
it is. Yeah.
It's a different relationship. For instance, when we're able, we do transfer funds from the nonprofit side to the building side to take care of some of those costs as well.
Could that be because of when the Martin Luther King Center was originally created, it was actually under another department, and then it moved to its own department head 10, 12 years after its creation, so it's kind of probably how the agreement kind of was like that. But initially, it was up under a different city department. It
probably-
didn't have its own director.
The decision was probably made, this is something we're gonna contribute to the MLK Center, just like we don't charge you rent, we don't charge you administrative fee, you know.
Then why do we charge the library and parks?
Because they don't have the same deal. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
it's a fair,
Yeah, it's a legitimate question.
I mean,
Needs to be discussed. There's no doubt about it. It needs to be discussed. One way or the other is kind of like fair for one, fair for all. Either add it or take it away.
You know, we're short on time. Can I
Yes.
get clarification on one last question? So there was about, I think I emailed you about the exact salary of the second position that you're seeking. And your response was the salary range was between 50,870 and 61,832, and you put same as the first coordinator. I'm looking at the West End job revitalization job description from February 27th, and the minimum was 58, which is the same, and the maximum was 78, and the mid was 64.8, which was the midpoint, but I think, so, but you guys, so I guess I'm kind of wondering, and that's, the breakdown here is kind of confusing on this, doesn't list the insurance, but,
That's
so, but you're requesting 55 to cover that, but if the numbers are the same, how's the 55 gonna, you're talking for about a half year?
The 50 to 61,000 that you saw me list was on our posting, and that's what I utilized.
Okay, just said same as first coordinator that you sent to me. So to me, I referred back to the salary range on the job description on February 27th. So
And
it's
I'm-
confusing, that's not really the same.
And the job posting for the first coordinator that went out to the public was listed at 50 to 61,000. So that's what I used, and that's why it's the same as first. I didn't want there to be any delineation between the two.
Okay.
Okay? We are down to the hour that we're going to have to call it,
Move to adjourn.
and so there is a motion to adjourn.
second.
Seconded. Roll call. We can't do all in favor.
Alderperson
What?
Robbins.
I know.
We can.
yep, we can.
Can we?
Kim's
All those in
doing
favor
anything.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?